All right. Hi, everybody. Hello. All right. I'm taking a look at the chat. It's so great to see all of you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow. We have already 200 people here with us. Hello. Let us know where you're from and take this as an opportunity to connect and meet with others. We have people from all around the world joining us today on this incredible and exciting topic. And so let's give it just a few more minutes just so everyone else can start joining us. All right, let's see, where are you guys from? Canada, New York, Los Angeles, Vancouver, UK. Hello. Scotland, Manhattan. Amazing. India, cool. Welcome. All right. So let's just go ahead and jump in. Let's get started. So hello to all of you. If you haven't come to any of my events previously, my name is Nadia, and I'm the founder and CEO of Zaya. And at Zaya, we are radically improving the delivery of affordable, evidence-informed, holistic healthcare to support people's mental health and their physical well-being, specifically for people with chronic health issues. And so putting on these events, such as the one today, are just really incredible and very important to help explore and understand healing beyond modern medicine, conventional medicine, Western medicine, and really just bringing more education and awareness around these sort of topics. And so today's event really is a conversation to really dive deep into understanding the connection between stress and disease and how we can prevent it and manage it using a holistic and integrative approach. And so just a few things that I want to note before we get started. So this will be available on YouTube after, so you can always come back, you can watch the replay. And if you did register using Eventbrite, you will get the replay sent out to you, and you will also get the podcast version. So we have the podcast version, which you can get on Spotify and iTunes. So, you know, if you just want to listen to it on the go or in the shower, it's really nice and really convenient. And then finally, if you do have to leave, just keep in mind that we'll be giving away 2 gifts towards the end, which I will share with you. So if you do stay till the end, you have the opportunity to get 2 gifts that we'll be offering. And then we do have a moderator today. Her name is Lauren, and Lauren is a social worker, and she'll just be helping out with answering some of your questions. Anything that you have about the event, just say hi to Lauren and she'll help you with that. And then basically just the format of today's event, really it's just going to be an open flow kind of conversation. And then towards the end, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A. So just please hold your questions towards the end, because I like to scroll, you know, it's a lot to scroll through sometimes. So if it's more towards the end, it's a lot easier for me to start seeing them, because we have a lot to cover. There's so much to cover. So I'm so excited though. All right, so I would love to get started by introducing our speaker today. So today I'm so excited to bring to you Dr. Safia Debar. And Sofia is a London-based GP with a special interest in neuroscience, neuroplasticity, stress management, and resiliency training. She is Harvard BHI certified and currently the only doctor in the UK to run their SMART stress management and resiliency training course. She's also, Tatler has featured her as one of the top 21 doctors in the UK in 2020. It's pretty impressive. And she now runs courses regularly to enable patients to gain an understanding of the neuroscience of stress, how it affects behavior, health choices, and mindset, and how to do it while adopting an integrative and holistic approach. So, Safia, I'm so thankful and so happy that you decided to join me in this conversation. And I would love to just get started with you sharing a little bit more about your background and really how you got started into this topic that we'll be discussing today.
Thank you, Nadia. I'm super excited to be with you guys. I laughed when you said you could listen to this in the shower. I had this like mental image of people listening to me in the shower. But anyway, I was like, okay, stop now, focus.
Creepy.
Okay, so basically, basically, I'm a London-based doctor. My first degree was actually in neuroscience, and then I went through medical school and underwent the traditional medical training, circled around different hospitals, different specialties, loved everything, and so decided to go into general practice. So I did a little bit of, I did a master's in public health, I did some academic general practice as well, some research, but essentially the first decade I was predominantly working as a hospital doctor in various specialties and then in general practice.
Mm.
And I would say I always kind of thought to myself, is this it? You know, it's a very,
Yeah.
very traditional, focused medical model. But I wasn't, of course, I was helping, but it was just, there was something missing.
Mhm.
Fast forward a couple of years, and I just felt myself, now I see it as I was burning out, but I was burning out doing something I loved. But literally, all I was doing was working. And just slowly, 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 I thought, this isn't right. So I turned to one of my passions. So I started to go try. I just thought, you know what, I'm buying myself a one-way ticket. Anyway, long story. I end up in Boston, ending up on a conference of mind body medicine. And it literally blew my mind. Not because I didn't think of an integrative approach before. I think I've always practiced quite holistically, but it was the research that was available, the power of meditation on our telomeres, on anti-aging, on inflammation, what it does to our DNA, epigenetics. Anyway, I was just kind of just it was a total game changer. It was a really pivotal moment, I think, in my career. And so I embarked on their certification. And a couple of years later, I'm now running their courses, still a GP, still practicing medicine, but I'm incorporating a lot more of this now. So
Mm.
it's a really lovely way to approach medicine. It's a really impactful way to approach medicine. And it's helped me as well prevent burnout. It's helped me work through the pandemic and be as okay as one can be. And it's just given me a completely different way to approach life as well. And so, yeah, at the moment, I run the courses, I do some one on one coaching, and I'm in medical practice in London.
Amazing, amazing. That's so incredible. Did you learn anything in while you were in med school around integrative medicine or and
Oh,
no? Mine.
it was physiology, biochemistry, cardiology, neurology, but everything
Mhm.
was symptoms, you know, presenting complaints, symptoms, treatment options, management, possible causes.
Mhm.
Very little. We had maybe a couple of days on nutrition.
Yeah.
I did public health as well. I did a master's afterwards in public health, and I thought the social determinants of health, it's massive. You know, all of these things impact health. It's not just, you know, you have asthma, you have allergy, it's all the stuff that links in to that pathway that then affects that. So when we are treating, for example, mental health issues, you can say, right, depression, tick, 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 tick. Okay, here's your antidepressant. And I'm not anti antidepressants, of course not. But it's like, what's going on in your life? What was your attachment to your primary caregivers? What is your belief system? What is your, you know, just everything, you know, and this goes for, forget mental health, but this goes for absolutely everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
it's so multifactorial, but I found that it was packaged, you know, you just like, okay, yeah, you need, you know, you should really lose some weight, you know, you should sleep better, go and manage,
Mm.
that's the best, go and manage your stress. What does that mean? I
Mm.
did a degree in neuroscience and I still didn't know what it meant and it's not that it's complicated. It's really not neuroscience in that it's not complicated, but
Mm.
it's reframing how we see stress. That is
Mm.
fundamental. It's reframing the whole relationship we have with stress so that we don't see it as necessarily negative, and
Mm.
reframing how we see our organism. And you know, even if we would treat ourselves like we treat our phone, you know that your phone needs to charge, yet we don't charge ourselves.
Mhm.
And you're going on a long trip, you'll take your charger, you'll think, where am I going to charge it? But we don't do the same. So
Mhm.
it's really more about seeing things differently and therefore having a better experience of life and knowing your neuroscience. You don't need to know a lot, but you just need to know how to leverage it so that
Yeah.
it's much nicer to yourself and you're not rejecting parts of you. That's how,
Mhm.
because that will affect illness, disease, everything kind of knows, further, downstream. And the
Mm.
problem is we don't really affect things, we don't really intervene upstream. We're kind of here in the reactive mode, trying to fix things, when actually, if we just sort some stuff out up here, much easier, much
Mm.
easier.
Mm. Yeah, I would love to even just talking about, something you said is reframing how we view stress, how we see stress. What about just like if we get started on just talking about the fundamentals of like what stress is and what happens in the body during a stress response or a perceived threat?
So you cut a little bit, but what I got was what is stress? So reframing stress, right?
Yeah, and what happens in the brain during a stress response.
Okay, so everybody listening, I will talk you through your stress response. Okay, so I want you to close your eyes if you can. Not if you're in the shower, not if you're dry. Anyway, if you can, if it's safe to do so, we will be in a stressful situation. Anyway, if you just close your eyes and imagine a real threat walking in. Okay, so I'm in my home office and a tiger walks in. What is going to happen in my brain? Well, number one, threat has been detected. So, an area of my brain called the limbic system, of which the amygdala is like the siren, is it's like alert, alert, alert. So then that will then trigger a beautifully orchestrated cascade to then have things in place. This is fast. There is no thinking involved in this. So, number one, I recognize the threat. My limbic system gets activated. It says, right, sympathetic nervous system, you're on. Right, hypothalamus, pituitary, different areas of the brain axis, you're on. From you, nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, I need adrenaline, I need noradrenaline, quick. They are released immediately. From you, I need cortisol. That takes about 20 minutes. What happens in my system when I see that tiger? I am now going to either run, freeze, or fight. So it's the fight, flight, freeze response. Okay. So what do I need to do? What does my body need in that state? So if you just ask yourself, okay, what would I need to do? Number one, my thinking has to be catastrophic, negative, judgmental, and narrow. Because I need to be focusing. I don't want to be chit chatting with other people or asking the tiger how it's been or any of that. I want catastrophic, negative thinking because it's trying to get my attention. Number two is I need a cardiac output. So my heart rate, my blood pressure, my respiratory rate are all going to go up. Do I care about what I had for breakfast? No. So my gut kind of down regulates. Do I care about my periods or my reproductive function or my fertility or anything? Off, down regulated. What happens to my muscles? I'm getting ready. So increased muscular tension. What happens to my sugar stores? Well, I'll need sugar. So everything is released. I release my blood sugar. Okay, so I'm ready. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm thinking my heart is up, my respiratory rate is up. Very good. I've got sugar. My muscular tension is up. Oh, but hang on. What is happening to my immune system? Well, actually, my immune system is thinking, okay, we don't have time to fight this virus or to fight this dodgy cancer cell or to fight. So that is then shifted into an inflammatory response. So my inflammatory cytokines go up, my clotting factors go up, my immune cells are up. So they're ready to fight. And they're making me, I like to think they're toxic. It's inflammatory. It's oxidative stress because it wants me, that's how I think about it. I want to taste disgusting. So if you were to take a bite, number one, I need to clot faster. So my blood needs to be thicker. Number two, I don't want to be tasty and sweet. So I want to be inflammatory. Okay. So all of this is all gearing up to enable me to fight him, if I can think, yeah, I could take you on, to run for my life, or the step above that is to completely shut down and just be like, please, God, if you believe in God or whatever, just please, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that is your fundamental stress response. That is appropriate. It has just saved your life if you're alive to tell the tale. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of the brain, limbic system, it shuts off all other bits of the brain. So that is your stress response.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that tiger, turns out he's vegan. So now we're like, oh, it's cool. So now he can be my friend and we're celebrating. Like, I'm a bit wary, but actually it's cool. Yeah, let's talk. So then that limbic system is like, okay, there's no more threat. Are you sure? Is it safe? So then that limbic system down regulates, and then you get a different area of the brain called our prefrontal cortex. So this is the area just behind our forehead. And that is our self-regulating center. So then what happens is all that dopamine, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol is mopped up. So you then go into spring cleaning mode. Heart rate slows down, blood pressure goes down. My thinking then becomes less catastrophic, more into storytelling. I want to tell you, oh my God, Nadia, you won't believe it. I just single-handedly fought off a tiger. So I'm open, I'm communicative. I want to connect with you. My gut switches back on. My reproductive function switches back on. You see, so I just then, my immune system is like, okay, there was a lot of inflammation. Now let's clean up. So all those inflammatory cytokines are cleaned up, blood clotting factors, etc. So then my immune system is in a repair growth phase. So it's wanting to, any dodgy cancer cells, it's got the capacity. Any viruses, bacteria infection, it's got the capacity.
Mm.
We have described our stress response, and then we have described our relaxation response.
Hmm.
So we can only be in one place at the same time. Only one person is leading the shots. And our self-regulating center, that's like the CEO of the brain. That's where I believe we are more authentic. We have executive decision-making. We are able to regulate our emotions. It's the area responsible for planning, focus, decision-making, all of those kind of higher, what I like to call higher emotional states, insight, empathy, all of those things are here. And that's why when we are in a stress state, a fight-flight state, that is switched off. It's almost like it's not switched off per se, but it's almost like it's on airplane mode. And so that's why we do not have access to rational thinking when we're freaking out. Now, this is all well and good. So if you watch an animal program, they're either fight, flight, or freeze, or chilling. Like, you'll never see a zebra thinking, I wonder if that lion's going to come back. And, last time I saw it, it's not. It's either they're in that state or not. Now, we are different in that we have a much bigger prefrontal cortex.
Mm.
So we can, and this is probably nugget number one, we can trigger that whole cascade by thought alone. So if I perceive, I get an email, or I have an argument with somebody, or whatever, if I perceive threat, I'm in my stress response.
Mm.
Okay. So if we're thinking about stress-related diseases, what's the link? Well, my blood pressure went up when I saw that tiger, right? Not a problem. It was temporary. It came back down. But what happens if that blood pressure is up, down, up, down, up, down for a year? No problem. Maybe fine. Decade. 2 decades. What happens to me? High blood pressure, ischemic heart disease, cardiovascular disease. My blood sugar released, up, down, insulin, up, down. After a year, no problem. After a decade, obesity, diabetes, metabolic disturbances. My immune system, inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, inflammatory the whole time. Longer time, it doesn't have time to spring clean, so it will let a few dodgy cancer cells go unchecked. It will let the viruses in. All of a sudden, I'm getting recurring infections. All of a sudden I'm getting autoimmune issues. All of a sudden I'm having cancer. I'm diagnosed with cancer, right? What happens to my muscles? Well, muscular tension, tension here, everywhere, etc. So you get the drift. And I haven't even spoken about if I'm always catastrophic and oh my godding it and negative thinking, depression, anxiety, and other mental health illnesses. So it's looking about that stress response is good for me, but not when it's inappropriate, not when I'm triggering that whole thing because of something that is not worthy of it. So I want to feel stressed when I see that tiger or when I'm about to be hit by a car. I want that, but I don't want it if I'm responding to an email or if I'm stressed with work or whatever. So I'm simplifying it because our stress response is modeled to us, and there are things that can happen that can trigger our stress response. But I want you to remember that we are the only mammalian species that can trigger that whole cascade through thought alone. So as a doctor, you come to me with high blood pressure. Okay. Yes, there's increased resistance in your arteries. You may have a family history. You may be prone, diet, etc. But what are your thoughts? How are you managing your stress? Because that is a stress response. So yes, I could treat you with medication, and I do. But if I'm missing out that piece of the puzzle, then, and it's the same for everything. It has an impact.
Wow. That
was a long-winded.
No, I love the way that you explain it, and it's so fascinating. So I think one of the questions that I've always tried to figure out is, why zebras don't get ulcers. One of the books that I'm reading, and animals have this ability to just shake it off, shake the stress off, and then their body's able to go back and to regulate and enter into that repair and reset rest mode. And so for people who have, what is it, why is it that the human body, what sort of system does the human body have that's maybe similar to the shaking? And then why does that not somehow get activated when somebody's experiencing chronic stress? Why isn't that the body able to somehow just, I don't know, put it on boost mode or something and enter that state?
I think that it's a little complex, but at the same time quite simple, in that what you're describing with an animal, like a rabbit running from a predator, and you're right, it loses it, and then you'll see that it will shake for 5 minutes and then be chilling. I believe we've lost touch. We have been conditioned out of the shake.
Interesting.
So if you look at a stress curve, so if time is on the x-axis and our physiological response is on the y, stress happens, right? We mount a response, so we go up. That's increased sympathetic drive. We then get to the top. This is a normal stress response. Threat goes, so tiger is vegan. We then go back down we then stimulate our relaxation response. So that's the parasympathetic. And we come back down and we hit our baseline. So the shake is the stimulation, is the switching off of the stress, right? Is, no, we're good, there is no more threat. And the activation of the parasympathetic, or the active relaxation response. Okay. So for example, tiger walked in, my sympathetic was up, but as soon as he leaves, if I have the belief I am safe, threat has gone, then my body, my parasympathetic, will automatically buffer all of that, and I will go back to my baseline. Problems arise for us when we're trying to come back down to baseline from that tiger, but then something else happens. So then we're back up into stress and we're trying to recover, and then something else. So when we get repeated hits and we're not able, so if I were to go to that rabbit and say, no shaking, I'm only going to give you a minute of shaking, and here is another pack of wolves. Repeated hit after repeated hit, what happens is 2 things, or possibly 3 things, is you just get so you can just get stuck in stress. So this is where we're kind of wired and tired. We just remain hypervigilant. So that's that rabbit that hasn't been able to shake, that is just like, oh my God, what if he's coming? What if he's coming? What if? So it's maintaining that stress cycle, number one. Number two is when it's been so overwhelming, or when we were young, or there's trauma, or we don't get a significant parasympathetic response, right? So we don't get the mopping up. Or when it's a freeze response and basically it's nothing. So this is where people are just kind of suppressing, and it's just kind of poker, it's like nothing. But in their body, internally, something's happening, but they're just like nothing.
Yeah.
We have that capacity, but what we tend to do, I think, is, it's kind of like you're a kid. No, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't feel. You shouldn't cry. Good girls don't do this. Big boys don't do this. So there's conditioning. So it's almost when you look at a baby, they are pure consciousness. You see their stress response. Like I have a toddler. Like she's either happy or she's not, like, and it can go from 0 to 360. When I start saying to her, no, you should be like this, you should do like this, if you do this, then mommy will get sad. What am I conditioning her? I'm saying to her, ignore your stress response. It's wrong, it's bad, it's whatever. So I'm conditioned. So almost, they're born as pure consciousness, and we then what happens to us is we're kind of deconditioned away from that, and then hopefully we kind of then become conscious again, and then go on the journey of growth and just having a look at our subconscious and our patterns and everything else. But it's because we have a developed prefrontal cortex that we have the ability through to maintain that stress cycle. But generally, it's to look back and see, okay, how can I buffer, and how can I strengthen my relaxation response? What is my shake? What is the equivalent of my shake? So it's not that we're not well adapted, it's that I think that we've lost sight of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like we live in this culture where we're taught to repress our emotions, and I think that is one of the biggest causes of disease. Actually, I'm reading this book by Deb Shapiro, Your Body Speaks Your Mind. Have you read that?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great book, actually. And she gives a really great metaphor. Are you okay if I read it, actually, just like a little bit of it? Okay. And it's just a really good way to visualize a lot of what you're saying. So she says, repressed trauma, anxiety, and fear can lead to physical problems or physical manifestations in the body. Imagine you are trying to squeeze some toothpaste out of a tube, but you have forgotten to take the top off. What happens? The toothpaste has to find some other way out. This usually means that it will come out of the bottom of the tube, or perhaps force a hole in the side, whatever or wherever is the weakest point. Now imagine that the tube of toothpaste is you. You are under pressure and beginning to experience psychological or emotional stress, but you do not take your lid off, as it were, by recognizing what is happening and taking time to relax or deal with your inner conflicts. So what happens to the mental or emotional pressure building up inside you? Eventually, it has to find a way out. And if it can't come out through the top by being expressed and resolved, it will come out somewhere else. It will find the weakest point, whether through your digestive system, your nerves, your immune system, or your sleep patterns. Pushed down, it becomes illness, depression, addiction, anxiety. Projected outward, it becomes hostility, aggression, prejudice, or fear.
That's amazing. Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah. And like, just how our unprocessed emotions, how it can really be stored in the body. And that's why I really love Peter Levine's work and, with somatic experiencing, because, and how they talk about how stress is in the neck, or anxiety is in the stomach, or anger is in the throat. And so how is it possible that specific stressors can show up in the same part of the body in more than one person? And because, you hear a lot of that. And what evidence or research has been done around this, and how can it be diagnosed as well? Because, I'm sure it would be difficult for doctors to support patients when it's not a a pathological condition or, you know, something that they could find on an X-ray, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's where you have to have a full person approach and a full environmental approach and a full everything approach. And so I think it's, you know, tradition, it's just about breaking down those barriers between and just allowing everything. And also I think people respond to treatments differently. I have patients that are like, Safia, I just need a pill. You know, you have to be ready and you have to be open to that. Now, most people I'm finding are very open to, you know, I want to think outside the box. And Gabor Mate's work, for example, where they describe certain personality types and they link that to certain conditions. I mean, it's really interesting. So it's kind of just knowing, okay. And also, I think the main message I want to kind of get across is it's okay. Everything that you do, every pattern you have, everything started as a protective mechanism. It was to protect you, to keep you safe, or to avoid pain. So we can remove ourselves from the blame equation, because you don't need to add to that. It's like, you know, with the toothpaste, and you're like, oh, what have I done? Why did I buy this toothpaste? And we don't need that extra. So it's like, okay, how can this toothpaste, the top is stuck. What are the tools that will help me to open it? Well, first I need to be willing to see that there's another way. Next, I can ask for help through other people who've been able to open that tube of toothpaste. Thirdly, I need the dexterity, the agility. So are there any other things that will enable me to open it properly? You know, am I seeing okay? Am I hearing okay? Are my fingers okay? So that will be, you know, my other relaxation techniques. So before we go into awareness on the SMART course, before we go into awareness, we go into, let me just buffer my stress so that I'm not dealing with a really hard tube of toothpaste. I'm going to kill this metaphor. But you see, like, it's like, you know, like when you're trying to open a jar, if you knock it or you pour it underwater, it's easier. So when you're dealing with your stress, it's easier if you just try and buffer the relaxation, because then what you're dealing with isn't so big. That's number one. Number two, examine that toothpaste. Have a look. What do I need? What's helped other people? How can I live? And then you just start with a small thing. You're not like, right, I'm redoing absolutely everything in my life. No, because your brain will panic. It will see that as a threat, because your brain is trying to keep you safe. But it's not necessarily safe and cozy and nice, what we think safe is. For your brain, safety is familiarity. So if you're used to squeezing that toothpaste, then that's what you know. And that may be safe for you. So the prospect of opening maybe is a threat in itself. So that's where we rewire and we redefine, okay, I know my brain has a negativity bias. I know my brain is wired for survival, and it will pick it every time. That limbic system that I described, that's like a Muhammad Ali of boxers. Like, you're not gonna, like, don't just work with it, but if you're gonna come up at it and, you know, if you're in a full stress response, telling you, no, don't worry, I'm sure the tiger's vegan, I'm sure. No, not happening. So when you know that about your brain, you just kind of are like, okay, I'm in my stress response, thinking no good, moving, getting into my body better, breathing. There's my vagal tone that goes up a bit. So it's just knowing, I like to be strategic, and I like, for those who know me, know I'm impatient. I want, like, you know, not necessarily fast results, but, you know, you want to get here. Okay, let's take a bit of time first, and let's be strategic. That toothpaste tube, I'd be like, right, let's YouTube it, see how Nadia has opened hers, do this, right? And then I'm going to devise a plan for me. What can I do? For someone, it could be, right, I'm just going to go easy on the negativity. Or for someone else, I'm just going to, you know, quit my job. No, please don't quit your job because, but you know, it could be I'm just going to get better sleep, or I'm going to let go of this relationship pattern, or I'm going to, whatever it may be, it's different for everybody. Just you go with 1% and you then, you know, you keep going from that. But just have a framework and be strategic, and you work with your brain, not against it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. And actually, I want to talk a little bit about rewiring the brain and what does that look like, especially if you're trying to rewire the brain in order to cope better with stress. What are some of the ways that people can do that?
So number one, you want to go with your nervous system regulation, right? Because we all want to fast forward into, you know, how should I think? If you have a core belief, or if you've been wired as a child, or stress has been modeled to you in, we don't talk about emotions, okay, we suppress, or we shout, we're highly expressive, or whatever, your nervous system, it's like, so when I used to visit my grandparents, they had a huge garden, and it smelt of orange blossom. You know, that kind of, so I don't have any, there's no orange blossom here, right? So, but when I smell orange blossom or lavender or rose, it just does something to me, right? So it could be a scent that you, so what I'm trying to say is we are primed very early. We will associate certain things with certain states. So what I'm trying to say inarticulately is, if I want to relax or I want to feel peaceful, I will smell some scents that I like. For someone else who was beaten in a house that smelled of lavender, and I give them lavender, you know, we tend to assume it's anti-anxiety, they may then freak out. So our early experiences have shaped our nervous system. If my needs were met, then my nervous system is robust. It is able to self-regulate. I'm able to go up in stress and then back down in stress. But if I wasn't, through no fault of anybody, everybody does the best they can with the nervous system they have. Okay, so it's not a blame thing. But if my nervous system wasn't regulated, if I don't know what calm means, then how will I experience it? So number one is about regulating our nervous system. And then we can then, what was your question exactly? Sorry.
Yeah, it was what are different ways that people can rewire the brain to better cope with stress?
So rewiring, we're talking about connections, we're talking about patterns. So it's like you have a recipe for a soup that you love. You've done it 100 times, it's on autopilot. So I have a recipe for a certain belief and thinking process and the associated physiological response. I've thought it, felt it, actioned it, or inactioned it so many times, it's become a pattern. And if I've done it again and again and again, my brain wants to make it super effective. It wraps it up in myelin, and that's a kind of a highway to wherever destination I'm going. If I want to get rid of that highway and say, right, this is my highway to stress, this is my highway to thinking I'm not good enough, or to anger, or to whatever, I want to provide a competitive neuronal network. Right? So it's literally like you've got the choice between going on this super amazing highway or taking this dodgy, meandering dirt road. Of course, you're going to go take the highway until we make that dirt road more attractive, easier, and we start to build it up. Now, to rewire, we need to know what is my pattern and to recognize it. What is my response? What do I feel? What do I think? How do I know? So that comes into the awareness. So this is where we start to develop a kind of a curious detective mindset, and we're having a look. So what is it? No judgment, curiosity. What is it that I want to rewire? Okay. So now when I feel that way, because it always starts with a thought and anyway, I won't get into the sequentials of it, but I will regulate my nervous system when I smell that lavender, and I will kind of rewire in the sense of I'm going to create a new loop. And so then slowly, and then I make the decision that I'm leaving this old pattern. I recognize this as a wire. It may have served me at one point to keep me safe, to protect me for whatever, but now I'm choosing and I have decided that I don't want this road anymore. I just don't. It doesn't serve me. It stops me. It keeps me stuck. It burns me out. Whatever it may be. So now I'm designing a new one, which is going to be difficult. Not necessarily difficult, but there will be resistance because my brain has very little activation energy for this pattern. It's done it so many times. It's like my vegetable soup that I can make in 2 seconds with my eyes closed. But if you ask me to make, like, those lovely Thai coconutty soup things, right? I need to get my, as the recipe, and I make that 100 times, it becomes my vegetable soup. So when we think, okay, it is repetition, but we need to add in, to catalyze that process, we want to add in the belief work. We want to let go of whatever is going to draw me to that first recipe. Right? So it's like when people become vegetarian, they're like, oh, I watched a program and that was it. One day to the next, I'm not touching a cow. Yeah, right? Now you've wired your brain very quickly. But say if I'm like, I really want to be vegetarian. It's like, oh, but that steak smells so nice. My why isn't strong enough. But if I watch what you watched, or then I will, because the emotional load will catalyze it.
So it really is about the emotions then.
It's emotions, but it's if you look at the whole thing, what is your pattern? So I'm a carnivore, and I realize that it's not good for my health. I'm just taking an example.
Yeah.
I want to be a vegetarian. Okay, do I believe in it? Like, I know people, it's like, yeah, I know, but I just love it. Okay, well, you're not going, fine. So what are my beliefs? What are my thoughts? And what is the actual pattern? So this is where we dissect this bit before we then create this bit. Because otherwise we keep going. This is like the New Year's resolution 2-week thing every morning, every year.
Yeah.
Like, I really need to do that. But you're like, yeah.
No, that's actually really interesting. So I actually tested this on myself, I think 2 weeks ago. It's a little bit of a story, but sometimes when I'm walking on the sidewalk and I feel a little bit of my foot slip, I actually think that I'm stepping in dog poop. And immediately I notice the sensations that are happening in my body. I can feel my sweat glands. I can feel my heart starting to race. I can feel like my skin tingling. And I thought to myself, I'm like, dog poop is harmless. I was like, okay, what if I rewire my brain to change my thoughts around the thought of dog poop and stepping in dog poop? So then I kept repeating it to myself, maybe for like 5 minutes. I was like, dog poop is harmless. If I step on it again, it's not a big deal. And now I've noticed every time that my foot slips, I no longer have that feeling. I'm just like, oh, whatever. If it's dog poop, it's dog poop. It's not the end of the world. So even just something like that, like testing myself to be able to rewire my brain, it was just, it was incredible. So I could only imagine like what we could do. Obviously it would take more time if it's something like trauma, PTSD, but I think that if we just start to bring more awareness, like you said, to whatever belief or thought or, emotion that we have from whatever it is that we're experiencing, we can completely just support ourselves in a new, enlightening way.
And it's not to say, we want stress, and it's not to say, it's 50-50 negative and 50-50.
Yeah.
But you're living authentically, you're living with intention, and you're creating. It's like you're not a victim. You're not like life is done to me and I'm just a victim of circumstance. And once external changes, then I can be happy. Then no, it's like I can have all of those things, those internal things right now. And remember, another thing is when we have had trauma in our early days or in our development, that prefrontal cortex wasn't fully developed yet. So the integration between limbic system and prefrontal cortex doesn't kind of complete, it hasn't finished until our mid-20s.
Yeah.
So when a younger brain is subjected to something where an older brain can rationalize it, the younger brain may not have that capacity. It's just taking in stuff. So it's almost going back and reparenting and kind of explaining. So it's like you're going back, you might say, well, when I was 5, I got dog poop all over me and it was horrible and I stank. And it's like, okay, so then it's like, okay, but this is what happened. It's not a usual event. It's not, so then you're kind of almost telling the story
Mhm.
around that, and
Mm.
then regulating your nervous system at the same time so that you're recreating a pattern.
Mm.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I would love to just, we have about 15 minutes, so I would love to just start inviting everyone to start asking questions. Feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat, and I will start reading those. Mm, mm, mm. All right. So as we have those questions coming in, another thing that I want to talk about is like, is some stress good?
Yes.
Yes, I would love to hear a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So cortisol in the kind of small amounts is an anti-inflammatory. A lot of people don't know that. So when you get sick, when you are fighting something, you know, you don't want everybody, all your immune cells just to be kind of chilling. You want some activity. So actually it helps you fight stuff off. When you are in a stressful situation, when you're doing your taxes, you want to be hypervigilant and a little bit catastrophic because it will do you good. You don't want to be like, oh well, I'm sure it'll be fine. Sure, it will be fine, but so you need stress. And stress can be positive. So it's really, really interesting when we think about excitement. So a lot of my participants are like, I'm like, what does excitement mean to you? Describe that state. And they're like, well, when you're going on a date or something new or something, well, it's the butterflies and I just feel a little jittery and it's like that, woo. And I'm like, okay, describe anxiety. Same
Yeah.
description, different spin. So it's the same kind of thing. So yes, stress can be neutral,
Mhm.
because my definition of stress is the non-specific response. That was the response the limbic system goes on, cascade, non-specific response to any demand. So me picking up my bottle, stress, but it's a neutral stress. It's not a big deal.
Mhm.
Positive stress, like big happy life events, just think of, births, getting married, married could be positive, could be negative, could be neutral, like it's all in the perception. But yes, another long-winded answer to your question, stress
Yeah.
is good for us. It can be positive, yes.
I love that. It's so important to mention that.
Yeah, for sure,
Um,
because you want a bit, because when you're stressed, your senses are heightened, you know, um,
mhm.
and you're picking up the information and you're paying attention. So we want a little,
Mm.
but we just want to know what our stress cycle is, and we want to know how to buffer. We want to basically choose. I want to choose.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So I would love to, I'm gonna take a look at some of the questions here. Let's see. Someone said, are there any suggested resources for learning more about the physical response to stress? Anything that you know, maybe on the top of your head?
Well, any work by Gabor Mate is great. Neuroscience is more. If you go to my website, I have some resources, a list of books and resources. Um, um, yeah, I think that the body keeps the score.
Mhm.
Body doesn't lie. All of those kind of things will start to introduce you very well to that very strong relationship.
Okay, cool. Let's see what else. Someone asked, what are your thoughts on EMDR?
It's a valid technique. It's yeah, I've seen it work very, very successfully in some patients, not so much in others. I'm of the school of thought, try everything. Try
Mhm.
and see what works. As long as as long as you're open, yes, it has had some great results. Yeah.
Hmm. Another question is it ever too late to make a conscious change?
No, 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 no. We
Mhm.
often think time, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, no.
Mhm.
Not at all. It's never ever too late. It's never ever too late to decide. And also, I think that certain patterns have served us in certain phases of life,
Mm.
and so it is important to kind of revisit.
Yeah.
We have different seasons. we'd have different stages and phases of life. Sometimes it's appropriate. Well, we never ever, so I always say you never invalidate any emotion. What you feel is what you feel. Full stop. What you can question is your thinking around it. That is very important. We're not here to suppress or to question or to, you feel what you feel. So you never ever, it's not, don't ever invalidate how you feel, or I should be like this, or that is distorted thinking.
That is so true. And there's always so much shame around certain emotions like anger or sadness and yeah.
And anger comes from a different area in the brain. Anger, if you feel angry, it can be a very, very, like frustration, which is like the lesser bit of anger. It can be a very motivational force. It's a different cascade. The heavy ones are shame, guilt, resentment. But if I had to pick one, I'd go with anger every single time. It gets stuff done. It makes it clearer. It's kind of like, no, I've reached threshold. No, this is not fair. So it doesn't have to, I'm not saying, all too much, but we are humans. It is normal to feel the 26 emotions. It's part of us. It is part of the human experience. If we think we have the expectation that I'm supposed to be happy all the time, well, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. No. But I can determine how long that emotion lasts for. That's the difference. So when my thinking is streamlined and it's nice and I'm nice to myself, then I can feel sad. And then when it's time, I'll come out of it. But if I'm like, you shouldn't be feeling like that, it will perpetuate that cycle. I think we have to kind of readjust our expectations of actually being human.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that. Thank you so much for saying that. I think that it's important for a lot of people to hear that. We have another question. I've heard of something called complex trauma, where the exposure to trauma is almost constant. Can anyone truly recover from complex trauma?
Yes, I think we now know about neuroplasticity, and that is the malleability of the brain. So we used to think it was fixed and then that's it. But we know through the research in spinal cord injuries and all the research, the body of research around neuroplasticity, is you can continue to grow new networks. Yes, when there's a lot of trauma, it can be especially unresolved stuff and stuff, if you were a child and it was kind of too much, then you can go into almost a freeze. And then you can look up the polyvagal theory, where you're basically coming down from a freeze response and then having to go through a fight, flight, freeze. So some people, when they're doing this work, may actually feel worse because they're waking everything up. But no, if you're well, you get the support that you need, embark on the process. It may be rocky at times, but absolutely 100%, 110%. Yes, there is hope, and there is human, like there's capability and potential of your brain to rewire.
There's another question on what's the neuroscience behind anxiety? And then this is a question, I think, from two people as well. And someone also wants to understand around depression. Could you explain a little bit about how that is? Maybe.
Okay. Okay.
Briefly?
Okay. It is multifactorial. So you may have a bit of genetic modeling. But we now know about epigenetics. So our environment has a huge role to play. But you may be susceptible. So there are kind of those kind of factors. So I leave that aside. Then we look at the lifestyle factors. So the kind of more environmental stuff around anxiety and depression. The underlying belief of anxiety is I am not safe. Okay, so that's why I have an anxiety response. Now, that I'm not safe has come from somewhere. We are primed to be more on the anxious side. We are primed to be hypervigilant and to forever be scanning for threats. We have a negativity bias. And so we have to know about that tipping point. Okay, you have walked down a pavement 100 times. You may have walked into dog poop once. You'll remember that once more than the other 100 times that you walked in and it was fine. So it's to be aware of that thinking pattern, and then the emotional regulation to do with it. So anxiety is a sympathetic drive. There is a sympathetic drive, and associated with certain neurotransmitters. And then obviously then, if we're in an anxious state and we are unable to switch it off, then that will perpetuate our anxiety, or that the stressor is too much. So when I'm thinking about anxiety, when I see a patient who describes to me anxiety, I think, okay, who are they? What was their attachment style, first of all, when they with their primary caregivers? What happened? When did you start to feel like this? What is your belief? What is happening in your mind to tell you that you're not safe? What is the emotion? So can we have these beliefs and regulate our nervous system at the same time? I am safe. Because when I see that tiger, if I'm like breathing nice and deep, my brain is like, okay, what's happening? Are we running? Are we chilling? Why are you meditating and there's a tiger in the room? So when you're anxious, you think that tiger's in the room. So if you're able to increase your parasympathetic, despite that, you start to weaken that belief system. And depression, I guess, is the opposite. Well, not the opposite, but depression is more, there's a sadness, there's a loss. So there's a different underlying belief system. But it's also worth knowing our schedules, our nutrition, sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're more likely, I don't know what it is, but 30-40% more likely to feel anxious and depressed. So there's a lot of stuff that can be sorted out to then help that balance. Eating high sugar and everything else, you're literally at the mercy of your insulin spikes and troughs. Of course, it's going to make you feel anxious because your body's like, oh my God, we're starving. Oh my God, we're not. Oh my God, we're not. We are, So it's kind of look at it as a whole thing. Ask yourselves, okay, what can I change? If I would change something, I would go with emotional regulation, learning just very simple techniques, and then looking at my belief system. Where did it start? What is it? What is it? And that's how I would tackle it.
I love that answer. Gosh, we have so many questions. Let's see. I kind of want to, let's see, somebody actually asked, is it wrong to assume that the evolution of how our brains have developed is for an intended purpose? Or why would survival designate this process as something to hold on to, even though it may cause more damage than a tiger ever could?
Tiger? Really? Tiger's going to kill you. That's it. End. Right? So the function of your brain is survival and perpetuation of the species. Right? So we are wired for survival and connecting. You don't reproduce. That one person, you're just going to be like sat there on your own on planet Earth, 100 years. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's evolution is fine because it's done its job. We're alive, but we've just kind of lost the plot a bit. You know what I mean in terms of that thing that's true, because the tiger is there. That's it. That's the end of you.
Yeah. Actually, okay. There's one more question, and I actually find this interesting, and then we'll wrap it up. But somebody asked, how did researchers come to the conclusion that high levels of stress can cause disease?
Ooh. Well, I think so I'm not 100% sure, but I know at Harvard, where I certified, they saw that they've done lots of experiments whereby if they, show somebody images or put them in a stressful situation, then all their parameters go up. So then extrapolate. So there's that body of research. There's the relaxation response. So when they put a group of meditators and compared them to controls, after 8 weeks of 20 minutes twice a day, they saw that gene expression for inflammation and oxidative stress went down. Can you imagine you can change the expression of your genes through the relaxation response? Massive. So through breathing, basically your genes switch off from being like inflammatory to being anti-inflammatory, massive. So there was that body of research. And I also am familiar with a body of research when they saw, I think it was soldiers coming back from war, and some of them got PTSD and some of them didn't. Some of them went on to develop lots of illnesses, and there was a lot of stress related stuff, and some of them didn't. But yeah, I would refer to all the, yeah. So that's what I'm aware of, but I'm not sure of like the first trial where they thought, this is interesting. But I guess, you know, it's anecdotal when you start to see things, and yeah.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much to everybody that asked questions. I'm so sorry we didn't have time to go through all of them, but if you'd ever like to connect with Dr. Debar, you can do that. I think Lauren put in the chat all of the links where you can find her. I think Lauren sent that in. So you can check out her website, which is rqwellness.com. And then you can, what's your Instagram and Facebook? How else can people find you?
Instagram, I'm not great on social media, I will say, but I'm getting better. Dr. Saf, Safdeb. Dr. Saf Deb.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much. This was incredible.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. And then finally, for those of you that have stayed with us, thank you so much for staying. And so we're having another workshop. So it's going to be a little bit of a different format from this one. So we're giving away the first 20 tickets for free to our next workshop on chronic pain management and prevention with our in-house chiropractor, Dr. Samara Bhatti. And that will take place on Thursday, October 7th. So it'll be the same time as today. So it's the first 20 tickets are free. Otherwise it's 15, it'll be 15 pounds. I don't know what that is in US dollars. So if you want that, you can use the promo code and the link. Lauren will send that in the chat as well. So the name of the event is Chronic Pain Management and Prevention Workshop. And the promo code that you can use if you'd like to get those first tickets is HEAL 2021. I think, let me see. Lauren, did you put that in the chat? If not, I can just pop it in really quick. All right, there you go. And then the second one, we recently actually just launched our booking platform where you can book online and in-person practitioners that are based in the UK. But again, you can have sessions with them online if you like. And so if you book a session on there, your first session, you get a free private one-on-one yoga class. And so if you'd like to do that, you can check out our platform. The link for that is also in the chat, which I will put there. So if you'd like to do that, you can check that out. And then we have another event happening. It's another free event, which will take place on September 2nd called Releasing Emotional Blockages and Trauma Through Neurodynamic Breathwork. And we'll be doing that with the founder of Neurodynamic Breathwork, Michael Stone. And so for all the attendees that come to that, Michael's giving away a free 2-hour breathwork session. And honestly, I highly, highly, highly recommend trying to attend that. Neurodynamic breathwork. I did a session with Michael. It's with a group of people. And honestly, it really changed a lot of things for me. And, I was a little bit skeptical, and as I like to be a little bit skeptical about everything, but it was really transformative. So if you like, you can attend that as well. The link for that is in the chat. And then finally, if you'd like to just continue getting updates and join us in any other events, workshops, and just continue to follow us on this journey as we try to improve the delivery of holistic care for people with chronic health conditions, you can do that by going to our website, and you can subscribe to our monthly letter. I won't spam you or anything like that, but you can do that as well. So the link for that is in the chat. Lauren just put that in there as well. So thank you so much. And again, if I think somebody said it's saying it's $15. Yes, it's $15. But if you use the promo code HEAL 2021, when you're checking it out, it'll be free. So there's only 20 though, so make sure you snag yours. All right, that's it. I'm done talking. Thank you so much. This was so incredible and so informative. And honestly, it was just amazing. And thank you just so much for sharing all of your wisdom here.
Thank you. And happy healing, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for attending. Have a beautiful day or evening wherever you're joining in from the world. All right. Bye.